Welcome back to Flashback Files, where we help students, recent grads, and young professionals reflect on how early experiences shape confidence, identity, and career direction. Today's guest is Alex. Alex is in her early 20s, and right now she's in one of those in between chapters, working, leading in a fast paced environment, and thinking seriously about what she wants to build for herself next. Alex grew up heavily involved in sports, including dance, gymnastics, basketball, and even softball, which makes her early adulthood decisions especially interesting. What I'm excited to explore today is how Alex has been navigating choice, independence, and ambition. We'll talk about identity, work, sports, and her curiosity around entrepreneurship and what it's like to be in your early 20s trying to trust yourself while figuring things out in real time. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Me too. So, before we get into the past or future, how would you describe this chapter of your life right now?
I think my chapter that I'm in currently, I'm growing, I'm grinding, and I'm preparing for my future.
When you say grinding, what area would you say you're focused on the most?
Oh man, kind of all of the above. Myself, my work, my home life, my social life. This is my year to kind of get everything organized, really use a calendar, and put all of my energy into the things that bring me the most joy.
Got it. If someone met you for the first time today, what do you think they'd notice about you pretty quickly?
I think they would notice confidence first, even if it's a fake confidence, if you will. I find that people say most of the time, "Oh, when I first met you, I was a little bit scared of you or a little bit nervous because you just seem so confident." And it's true, I am quite confident, but I'm also confident in things that I'm not confident in, if that makes sense. I'm pretty self aware and I know when it's time to put on a face and kind of fake it till I make it.
Yes, I love that term. I heard that early on too, and I kind of bought into it a bit, but I know what you mean.
Absolutely.
Well, you work as a supervisor slash bartender right now.
Mhm.
How did you first end up in the restaurant, the service world?
You know what? You mentioned in the intro that sports was a huge part of my life, and it was right up until COVID. I was a gymnastics coach for 4 years before COVID hit at the gym that I had previously trained at as a kid. And I was there until they said, no more gatherings. And I was out of a job. It wasn't a full time job. I was in high school, but it was something that excited me and working excited me. So then I thought, okay, now's the time to go find something else to do. A lot of my friends at the time were hosts at restaurants, and I thought that would be something interesting to explore. And I applied to a local Boston pizza at the time, and that's where it all started.
Okay. And did you start as a host?
I did. I did start as a host. I think I was 16 or 17.
Okay. And you haven't looked back. You've been in for quite a few years then.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's been a little while now.
What do you think about when you think about working in that environment? What is it taught about yourself? I'm thinking maybe pressure, dealing with people. What things stand out to you?
I've always been pretty decent at multitasking, but this has really upped the level of it beyond anything I could imagine. You definitely need to have your head on a swivel at all times. You're balancing so many things at the same time while maintaining a positive attitude and a smile on your face, even if it's a fake smile on your face. And I feel like it's taught me how to be professional in a way that you have to carry yourself a certain way and have a certain attitude about yourself to make sure that those dining and the guests that are looking at you don't realize how busy you are and how much you actually have no idea what you're doing.
Right. Or when you have a bad day, like you talked about confidence and not faking it, but portraying it. If you're having a bad day, you still need to show up. Guests want to have a great experience. They're paying money. So you're touching
Absolutely.
on that a little bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, they never stop coming. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what day they've had or you've had or what day of the week it is. People will come. The doors are open, people will come, and that's something you just need to get used to. They really don't care that you had a fight with your boyfriend in the parking lot or, your cat died that day. Like, they don't care. They're there to have a good time, and they want you to provide that for them.
Right. So I just got to double click on that a little bit. Are there any things that you do to ground yourselves? Let's say you had a rough time, like let's say a pet passed away or you just had a rough day. Is there anything you do to ground yourself before you walk through the doors of the restaurant?
I try to prepare myself, if that makes sense. It might sound a little bit dramatic, but I luckily have all the access to the stats and things of the restaurant before I go in because I'm a supervisor. So I tend to find the time or make the time to see what I'm walking into because I feel as though no matter what kind of day you had, giving yourself that extra step up and, holding yourself accountable as to what you're walking into prepares yourself, you know, enough.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna walk into a party of 40 and they are celebrating an engagement, they're not gonna wanna hear that, you've had a bad day. They're gonna want to see a smile on your face, as opposed to maybe a day that you just have a bunch of family reservations, and I find it sometimes easier to fake it because I can just talk to them like a normal person, but it definitely helps to prepare myself.
I'm thinking visualization too. When you
Mhm.
see an engagement party or family, you've had that experience before. You can almost visualize how that moment's going to go. Am I correct or am I way off?
No, absolutely. You need to visualize the vibe, if you will,
Yeah.
and think, okay, they're going to be in a really great mood. Like, you're going to have to fake being in a good mood, or you're going to have an extra espresso before you step onto the floor because they're going to be looking for someone who's there to celebrate with them.
Right. So you are currently in a supervisor role. I'm super curious in terms of your age when you took on the role. I would imagine there's managing your peers, managing those that maybe have more experience than you or even just simply older than you. How have you adapted to that in terms of managing your peers and people with maybe more experience or that are just technically old?
I did find that a challenge when I first took on the role because I was 18 years old when I first became a supervisor at the current workplace that I'm at. And at first, I did get some really odd looks from my peers, and they'd say, "Oh, like, are you applying to be a host? Are you our new server support staff?" And I would just have to say it with confidence that no, I'm supervising. And I did get some pretty crazy looks at first, and it was a little bit of a learning curve just because I was taken on as a supervisor, and normally I feel like that's something you work up towards, and so you get to learn all the back end and then step into that role as opposed to being given that opportunity and having to learn everything kind of backwards first. But I think something that helped me with that was just seeing my peers as people, and we're all people, we're all here for the same reason, and I found that learning little details about them behind the scenes and about them personally really helped because then off the floor you get to have those conversations with them and you get to relate with them, and I feel like it really brought it down to eye level for those that were older than me and maybe didn't have the respect for me that others did, like the younger staff members at the time. But I still find that as, I don't want to say a coping mechanism, but um strategy that I can relate to the young kids that are trying to decide what university to go to, and I can relate to the moms because I can just talk to them because we're all just people at the end of the day.
Yeah, we're humans. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What is your management style?
I'd say my management style is lead by example. I would never ask someone to do something that I personally wouldn't do, whether that's scrubbing a toilet or, cleaning up something gross or speaking to a table because they're having an issue. If I wouldn't do it, I would never ask someone else to do it. And I feel as though that helps because it really shows that if you have the confidence to do it, you're also kind of passing the torch along to say, I believe that you can do that as well because I'm right here with you and I have your back if it goes wrong or if you need an extra confidence boost.
Right. So on the front line with everybody.
Absolutely.
Do you see the work that you're currently doing as something that you would carry on more short term, longer term?
I feel like that's still a difficult question, and no matter where you are in the industry and what point you are in your life, I feel like everyone's asking themselves that question constantly. We have people that left the industry and returned, or they, started a family and came back just because they thought it was something fun and they really wanted to have an outlet. I personally think I'm going to be in the industry for a little bit more. I don't see myself, I don't see this as my end game. However, I do think that it's going to be a part of my life for quite a while. And even if I were to, step out on my own venture, I feel like it'll still be in this realm.
Yeah, it's from what I hear, it seems to be quite a reliable opportunity, to
For sure.
make income and that sort of thing. Just a side note, my dream job, if I could do anything, is a bartender.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
And why is that?
I just like the connecting with people, the random conversations that you could have around the bar, different walks of life coming in and just getting to know people. It's always fascinated me.
Absolutely. And you know what? The more time you spend visiting, the more you get to step into that world, even if you're not behind the bar.
True. Okay, so you graduated high school, I'm gonna estimate around 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. Let's dive into that a little bit. During high school, you had your hands in quite a few things. There was some dance, some gymnastics, some basketball, and softball. What sports and competitive activities, what did it give you at that stage of your life?
It definitely gave me an outlet. It gave me something to put my competitive side into for sure. I feel like it also fed into my leadership confidence that I currently have because believe it or not, I was normally one of the younger ones on my team. And it was because of skill level. Like I was pretty decent at the sport I was playing, which was softball. That was my full-time sport. I was normally a younger one on my team, but I would somehow find myself in a leadership role pretty consistently. And I feel like it definitely helped build the foundation of the leader and manager that I currently am.
That just makes a whole lot of sense that you're walking as a supervisor at 18. You already had that exposure to older individuals and taking on a leadership role. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Which one of the activities that you did do you think shaped you the most and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say softball. It was the sport that I did for the longest time in my life. I also grew into different positions while I was playing it. I first started as a really bad infielder, and it made me explore other positions. And it taught me that just because you're bad at one thing does not mean you need to stop. You can just find yourself to be good at another thing. I ended up being a pitcher and an outfielder, and I really loved outfielding. Pretty decent hitter. I wouldn't say I was fantastic, but on the better end of the average, if you will. Um, and yeah, it definitely shaped me the most because it taught me the most, and it was a part of my life for the longest.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. What takes being a good outfielder? What do you have to have from a skill set?
Wish I could pin it to one thing, and I also wish I could stay focused, but I'm one of those people that needs 100 things happening in order to focus. So, I was in the outfield with a mouthful of seeds and spitting, and that's how I would pay attention and keep track of what was going on. I think being a good outfielder is being able to react well, because you need to be able to react to the ball coming off the bat immediately. One step in the wrong direction can honestly change the course of the game.
Right. Timing's everything with the ball and
Absolutely.
sometimes. Okay. What did being part of teams teach you about yourself, especially when you think about pressure and competition?
I think it taught me that your peers are your number one support system, but they are also your number one competition. And I believe that through and through, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in, your own social life or your job or your sport or whatever it is, you have to kind of look left and right and understand that you're all here, you all made it this far. However, you're competing against each other. So, you can be friends off the field, on the field as well, of course. It takes a lot to be a part of a team, and you need to be able to cooperate with a ton of different personalities and people. However, if you want to excel at what you're doing, you need to kind of absorb what the people you look up to are doing and also identify what the people you think are not doing such a great job. You need to identify, what they're doing that you disagree with and kind of reflect on all of those things to make yourself better and make yourself your own person.
Wow, and you were aware of that at the time? Did it grow? Did you know that innately, or did you kind of develop it over time?
I think it took a little bit of time to realize that. At a young age, when you start sports, it's just an activity and something to do. However, once you grow into it and you become an adult and it becomes a part of more of your future, you really are just competing against your peers. If you've got a game and a scout's going to be there, you hope that you win the game and everyone does well. However, you also want to stand out and get that scout's attention because you want to be the one to sign and not the person next to you.
Right. And this is a great segue. You were playing at a very high level with softball. Can you just share with listeners exactly what level that was and what what transpired between then and
So I played at an elite travel ball level. If you're comparing to the States, it's called a travel ball. In Canada, it's called elite. Basically, you're on a team that does not play in Canada. You travel to the States every single weekend to play against American teams, get American exposure, and put yourself in front of the schools that are going to pay you to go to school, essentially. I was on two different academy teams towards the end of my career, and I did truly think that I was going to be going to school for softball and that was going to be my future. And whatever I ended up studying was going to be a part of my life for, of course, up until this point and then some. Um, However, when COVID happened, our training facilities were shut down, and it was during a time where we really couldn't go on fields outside because of the weather, but also there was a lot of restrictions in place where we couldn't even be seen with more than a handful of people in the same place, even if it were outside. So playing with a ball and playing not a contact sport, but you're kind of all sharing the same equipment, that was just not allowed. And the fact that that was around the time where it was time to make decisions for school, where you were going to sign to, and things like that, it put us at a disadvantage because the girls in the States, have the good weather and they get to be outside all the time. And it didn't really pertain to them as opposed to the way it did in Canada, especially after the border shut down. And it basically kind of put our season on hold indefinitely.
wow. Well, I'm thinking you're in this, you're playing at a high level, you're wrapping your head around this prospect of playing in the States. And then let's say the rug comes from underneath you, COVID happens, and next thing you know, you're not going the route that you think you're going. Can you walk us through psychologically the impact that had on you and how you were able to pivot? Because you have pivoted, you're doing really well today. But how did you pivot at the time?
Absolutely. At the time, to be completely honest with you, probably not the answer you're looking for, but I was so excited. I was so relieved almost because this was such a huge part of my adolescence and my high school career and my spare time. My high school classes were determined based on what was going to get me into American schools. And my free time was how do I get a lift in so I can be better at practice and be one step ahead and ready. And it was nonstop. So originally when we were told it was going to have to be put on pause, no practice for a couple weeks, um typical COVID rules, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to see my friends and I'll be able to have kind of like a normal couple weeks, normal being, what my peers were experiencing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. I did not realize at the time that that was going to be permanent. So originally I was relieved, and then once it got extended and extended, the stress really started to hit it, like touch me, and I was like, "Oh wow, what do I do? I haven't even looked at schools in this country. Like, I don't know what program I want to go into." I thought everything was decided and set in stone, and all I had to do was pick what state I wanted to play in, and I was good to go, and now everything's turned upside down, and then I started to panic.
I wasn't looking for any cutting answer. Actually, it's a relief that you were really that because there could be a completely different reaction to something like that. But hey, good.
Yeah.
When we think about like with what direction can I go here? Hmm. Okay. When you look at high school, can you walk us through like what you thought you were supposed to do and how that compared to what actually happened? So it sounds like, maybe what you were supposed to do was go to the States, but then you had a chance to kind of recalibrate. Was there still a thought, okay, I'm supposed to do this because my friends are doing the university or the college route?
Right. I thought I was supposed to go to school. It was kind of in my head that that was really the only option because that's what I was training for my whole life basically was to go to school. I mean, to play a sport, but of course to do it at a school because at the time that was the highest level you could get to. So when I had to pivot and think about school here, I still thought that was my only option. You know, my parents have multiple degrees, master's degrees. They were teachers. So they, of course, were encouraging school, and I still don't blame them to this day. It's still something that I think about often as to, did I make the right decision? Should I go back? Is that past me? Like, I do still think about it, but I definitely thought school was the only option until I kind of explored what it would be like to just work and figure it out, and then that became just put your head down and work, and that's what got me to where I am now.
And where are you now from just a personal perspective? You're on your own, you're living with parents. Like, what's the situation?
Yeah, so I'm on my own. I have an investment condo, which is fantastic. You know, I have a car that's paid off. I have this little dog here who is fully mine. My space is mine. I'm like, I've got everything that I once thought I wouldn't have until I would be, 30 years old and settled down. I was able to build it myself with the help of, co-signing and parents and things like that. But still myself.
Yeah, way to go. What's your dog's name, by the way?
Her name's
Hi, Penny. So on that, when you think about your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her about how things actually would unfold?
First, I would tell her that everything's gonna be okay. I feel like 18 is such a stressful time. That's when you think you're making the biggest decisions of your life and kind of choosing your path and really setting yourself up for the future. Um, I would also tell her it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to not know, because those are both things that I once was concerned about when I was 18, and you know what? I'm still concerned about it now to this day. However, I'm in a completely different part of my life, and some would say I'm, successful with where I'm at right now, but I still have the same worries that I had when I was 18, and that's okay.
Absolutely. We never all ever have all the answers.
Absolutely. Unfortunately.
So I know you've shown interest in operating a business. Where do you think that curiosity comes from?
You know what? I feel like that curiosity comes from kind of the same two things I just mentioned, and that's not knowing and being interested in so many things. I love to learn, but in a way that's more hands-on. I'm always curious about the back end of things, my mind never really settles. I could be out in public, let's say, at a Jays game, for example, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how the back end of that hot dog stand works and how many people do they have to schedule and are they all on the same team and how did they get to this point? And I'm always curious about those type of things, and I feel like being curious has really fueled my interest in starting my own business and becoming an entrepreneur for sure.
Awesome. And is there anything else outside of curiosity, if you think of, maybe the freedom or independence, leadership came up, any of those elements stand out to you?
I would say freedom, but in a way that to make my own decisions. I personally think I have a fairly creative mind, and sometimes when you're under the influence of a boss or a superior, you're not able to really explore those things, even if it's just your management style. Like, I'm so creative or curious about how I would do this, or, I would maybe try a different strategy. But once you're under someone, you really might not have the opportunity to do that. And I feel like if you're your own boss and you've created your own business or venture, whatever it may be, you can truly explore anything your mind comes to, and nobody's telling you no.
Good stuff. Yeah, I agree. Have there been moments at work where you've thought, I'd do this a little differently if it were mine? You don't have to talk about your current employer, but just in general, you ever had those.
Definitely. And I also feel like that's helped me get to my leadership role that I'm at right now because I mean, again, with faking the confidence, like, I'm really not afraid to speak my mind, and if I think it's to better everyone around me, I'm definitely gonna take the opportunity to say something, even if they think it's a bad idea, just like, "Oh, like, what do you think if we did this?" Or, "Do you think this would be an option?" And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes, my superior listens and sometimes they don't, which is completely fine, but I definitely have those thoughts, but I also feel like it's not a scary thing to also bring them up or explore them.
Yeah, I think in organizations in general, like there has to be that challenger mindset as well, like not being content with how things are just because that's how they've always been. Jesus, with AI coming on, imagine a business not considering AI at this day and age. So absolutely, we need people like you in organizations that can be creative and think of things differently.
Yeah, think of things the robots won't, right?
Yeah. Do you think you're becoming more yourself lately or still figuring out who that even is?
I wanna say both. I definitely think I've become more myself once I made my own opportunity to figure it out. So, I think both. The more you figure it out, the more you become yourself and vice versa. Yeah, like, even the way I live at home and the way I mean, it's just raising a dog, but the way I raise her as opposed to how other people keep their pets and things like that, I feel like growing and figuring it out as I go has also helped me become the person I am today, as well as being the person I am today has helped me just figure it out.
Yeah. What's something people might underestimate about you?
Oh, that's such a tough question. I think they would underestimate I spoke so much about my confidence and liking to challenge people and things like that, but I also to an extent like being told what to do just because I like to hear it from another person's point of view. Whenever I'm told to do something, I just do it kind of thing. Maybe I'll have a couple questions or maybe I'll challenge it a little bit, but it also helps me understand the other person's point of view, and I love knowing the full circle, and I love knowing to see, "Oh, like, you see it this way, I see it differently. Um, I'll still do it the way you want it done, but that's what makes me challenge myself and also think about how I would do things differently, so it kind of helps me also learn about myself."
Yeah, so you're open to another person's perspective.
Absolutely.
As confident as you are, you're still willing to collaborate and, take direction when you need to.
For sure.
When things feel overwhelming, and so I'm thinking about, again, as busy as the restaurant can be at times, what usually grounds you or brings you back to yourself? So that could be in the work environment, but also if something overwhelms you personally.
I think I call it checking myself. I don't really know what other people would describe it as, but even just at work, looking to my peer and just saying like something silly, something funny, something that, we're not expecting, just like, hey, shake it off or, make someone laugh. And at the end of the day, it makes you click back into, you are doing customer service, you need to put a front on and a face on and all these things. But then once you look to your peer, your partner, and kind of make a silly face or silly comment, it's like, hey, we're all just having fun. Am I right? Like, we're all just here. We're all just people. And if someone's eggs are cold, we'll just get them new ones. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, bit of a reset to get you out of the funk that you might be in.
For sure.
It's funny how small things like that really change your mindset.
It snaps you out of it for sure, because I feel like once you're in the part of your head where it's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get out of this. People will not stop coming in. Everyone has a problem. The kitchen's taking so long." Like, all these things. "Oh my god, that person ordered a cocktail and I can't remember the ingredients." Like, no matter what it is, you just have to say something silly and it's like, "Wait a second. Everything's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay at the end of the day."
Yeah, yeah, life will go on.
Absolutely.
So if life went well for you over the next 2 to 3 years, not perfectly, just honestly well, what would that look like?
Don't think there's a perfect picture to say what it would look like, but more of what it would feel like. I think it would feel like I don't regret decisions that I've made, and I feel confident in the decisions that I've made to get me to this point. I think being successful within the next couple years is just something that puts a smile on your face and makes you feel good. I don't think there's a perfect picture to it.
Well put. What's one thing you're giving yourself permission to explore even if it doesn't make sense yet?
I definitely wanna circle back on the business ventures. It's something I would love to explore. I don't it's not like I went to school for business or marketing or any of those things, so to me, it might not all make sense yet. Maybe I just have the, end goal or the finished picture in my head, but it's definitely something I want to explore in the future, and this probably means I'm gonna have to ask for help, but that's also okay.
Absolutely. If if you're thinking about the listener in the 18 to 22 age segment who's maybe feeling behind or feeling like they don't have it right, like what would you want them to hear?
Honestly, we're all gonna have those thoughts at any point in our life, and whatever is getting you through at the moment, lean on it. Lean on the people around you. You can be 50 years old and you still feel behind. You can be 35 years old and you still feel behind. It's never going to end as long as you can find that peace. And whatever brings you that peace is what's going to keep you sane at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm going to ask, this is a two-parter, okay?
Okay.
What is something you wish more people understood about being in your 20s? And I want you to look at it from the lens of a teenager, so maybe 16-year-old Alex, 17-year-old Alex. And then I want you to look at it from an old person like me who's looking back, who may not understand, how savvy or what have you that generation is. So start with the person just entering their 20s.
So entering their 20s, I mean, we've all been there, or if you're not there yet, you will be there, but I feel like you always try to give yourself a timeline and give yourself a schedule. And, young women, for example, will say, "Oh, I want to be married by this age and I want children by this age. And I hope I get, my dream house by," you know what? None of that matters. Once you are in your early 20s, you'll realize that your parents were right. You can't control it, and you're younger than you think. And I need to also remind myself that you're younger than you think. No matter how mature your mindset is or what you've gone through to force yourself to mature, you're younger than you think. There's always time to start over. There's always time to try something new. I'm still trying things new, right now. And I hope to always be trying something new throughout my life. And new is good. New is okay. You don't have to plan every single little detail. And you definitely don't need a timeline.
Well put.
And from the older point of view, we're trying. We're trying our best.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Do you think individuals that are older might think of like, you're not trying or slacking? What's that about?
I think s- I feel like once you get to a certain age, you almost forget what it was like to be in these shoes in your early 20s. So maybe once you hit all the milestones that you were hoping for, it's kind of like, oh, I'm accomplished, and you forget what it takes to get there. I think it's important to know that we all started somewhere. They're all going to be in different places, different paces, but we're trying our best. We're trying to either break habits or get to where you are. And, maybe I don't have a smile on my face today, but I'm trying. But you don't know kind of what we're going through because there's people in their early 20s who are still writing exams. Some of them are starting families. Some of them are, stepping into a relationship that they hope turns into a marriage. And we're all just trying to figure it out, and we're all at different paces, and sometimes it's hard to look at our peers because we're all at different places. And so from an older point of view, like we're truly just trying our best.
Yeah, and honestly, that lands with me as a father for sometimes I project my parenting lens on a decision maybe my 13-year-old made. But if I'm really being honest with myself and I really put myself in my 13-year-old shoes, I know she's well ahead of decision making than I was. So why do I have the right? So it's almost I like what you're saying there, just reflecting back to when you were like when I was in my 20s or I'm 13 for my child, to
Mhm.
really just understand that we're all the same. We're just in a different bit of a generation.
Right.
And actually to add to that, because you've had a lot of exposure to social media,
Mhm.
grown up with it, I'd be remiss not to ask how did you navigate that through high school and even now in terms of what's projected as a lifestyle and how do you handle all that stuff?
I just think you social media is filtered, and you almost need to put your own filter on that filter and realize that everyone who's like whatever they're posting on social media, it's their perfect picture of what they want you to see. And you need to understand that, that might be a perfect beach picture to you, but to them, it might mean that it took them, lots of time to get to that point, or they needed to save up a ton of money to go on that vacation. And to you, it's just like, oh my gosh, they're on vacation. Like, that must be so nice. But they want you to know that they're on vacation. They don't want you to know what it took to get to the point of being at the beach on vacation. Right. So I feel like just keeping that in mind and just trying to keep yourself grounded and back down to earth, and even almost picture what people are thinking about you when you post. You could post that you're also at the beach and people are going to think, "Oh my god, she's on vacation. Like, I wonder how she can afford that." But you also want people to know you're on vacation, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, you just need to filter the filter, if you will.
Makes sense to me. So that is the end of the official line of questioning. I do have a bit of a rapid fire for you. So
Okay,
you're gonna be as quick as possible with your responses without overthinking. You up for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. Morning person or night thinker?
Night thinker, 100%.
Coffee, energy drink, or neither?
Coffee, definitely coffee.
Busy shift or slow shift?
Busy, get that money.
Comfort zone or growth zone?
Growth.
Plan it out or figure it out as you go?
You gotta figure it out as you go.
Money security or time flexibility?
Time makes you money.
City energy or quiet reset?
Quiet reset for sure.
Something you're still working on.
That quiet reset.
A habit you're trying to build.
Being organized and not overbooking myself.
Hopefully, that's not this interview.
No, no, this is a priority for sure. I'm talking about the IKEA boxes under my feet, the pile of laundry you don't see that needs to be put away, the dog, like, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm glad we clarified. A habit you're trying to break.
Thinking it's okay to be 3 minutes late.
Okay. A compliment that sticks with you.
You carry yourself so well. I've heard that a couple times and I'm like, "Thank you. I really appreciate that," even if, again, I'm just faking it.
A job you tried for 1 year just to learn.
Ooh. I've never done anything in the retail realm. I feel like why not add it to my checklist of random silly jobs that I've never done or that I have done.
Okay. One word that describes this chapter.
Growth,
One word you want the next chapter to be.
hustle.
Hustle. Well done. I
All
think
right.
I think we'll leave it there.
Okay.
I just want to thank you very much for your chat. I love the comments about confidence, whether you're faking it or you have the confidence. I certainly appreciate the team, like the supervisor role at such a young age. That takes people don't realize when they see a younger supervisor, the amount of confidence and faith in yourself to be able to manage your peers and again those that have experience. It takes a lot of discipline to do that. So those are a couple of highlights. And the whole softball thing, like don't even get me started. I just learned for everybody listening, I just learned about it within 24 hours and didn't have a chance to stitch it in the story too much or the interview questions, but I'm glad you went into it. And I see you differently now, Alex. I guess this is why we do it though. It's this is an opportunity to get to know you and the way you think. And I know you've probably given quite a few listeners a lot to think about. So thanks
I
for your
hope
time.
so. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And that brings us to the end of today's conversation with Alex. What stood out to me most was how Alex described this chapter: growing, grinding, and preparing, but not in a perfect timeline kind of way, more like learning how to show up, even on the messy days, and still carry yourself with confidence, even when it's the fake it till you make it kind. We talked about what it really takes to lead at a young age, managing peers, walking into chaos, keeping your head on a swivel, and how so much of that came from her sports background. That softball story in particular, elite travel ball, training with the expectation of playing in the US, and then COVID pulling the rug from under her. What I appreciated was her honesty, the initial relief, the panic later, and then the pivot, choosing work, choosing independence, and building a life earlier than she ever expected. And I think the bigger takeaway here is this: you can be successful and still feel behind. Alex said it perfectly. That feeling doesn't magically disappear at age 23, 35, 50. The win is learning how to ground yourself, check yourself, and keep moving anyway. If you're listening in that 18 to 22 range and you feel like you're off track, I hope this episode reminded you that there are a lot of ways to build a life, and you don't need to have every detail figured out to be heading in the right direction. Thank you again, Alex, for the honesty, perspective, and energy. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who's in that in between chapter. And I'll see you next time on Flashback Files.